being a founder is just really hard and lonely. It doesn't actually make economic sense to do a startup. Effectively, it's like, well, here's $3 million, go build something cool. You're looking for the outliers. You're looking for the people who are they're not in the mean. They're like 3 sigma or 4 sigma out of the.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Founders Moment, brought to you by Berkeley Summer House. I'm the BSH student member Natalie, and today we have the honor to be joined by John Whaley, a serial entrepreneur and the founder of Inception Studio. And John is not just any founder. He has successfully launched and scaled multiple startups and now are helping other tech innovators to do the same. So John, it's great to have you here today. And could you start by giving an introduction of yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm John Whaley. I guess, like I mentioned, 3-time entrepreneur. All 3 companies got exited. And I'm on the faculty here at Stanford in the computer science department. I used to teach about compilers. Now I teach about large language models and generative AI. And I got my PhD here at Stanford as well. And I was won the best thesis award, and I did my undergrad and master's at MIT.
So at the start of the interview, I really want to kind of delve back into some of your earlier lives, as early as 5 years old. So I as I was going through your website and your interviews, I saw that you label yourself as a builder, and also said that you've been coding since the age of 5 and never stopped. I'm curious about how does this identity as a builder mean to you, and how has it shaped your journey through the technical world?
Yeah, I mean, I got started when I was young. My family had a computer, and we didn't really have many games, and so if I wanted to do games, I had to program them myself. And then and so it used to be there used to be these magazines that would have the listings of code in them, and you could type them in and you could run the program. And so that's how I got started. Was I just copied it from the magazine. Of course, I would have typos, and then I have to debug it and have to figure out what's going on, and then I want to make modifications. And then what happened was I was in high school. I took computer science, the first AP in computer science, and I did well in that class because I had a lot of programming experience at that time. And then teacher knew that I'm smart and good at programming and stuff. And so she said, "Oh, there's this thing called the USA Computer Olympiad. Why don't you try it?" They had these take-home problems, and you had 1 week to solve them. And the problems were really hard. And I got really, really into them. I just kept doing them. And then I found out later on that I was one of the problems that I solved, I was the only person in the U.S. to actually solve it. So that was, and I ended up then going to the national USA Computer Olympiad. That was the big eye-opening thing for me. I think the interesting thing was I always had this vision of people who were kind of really good at that, and I always thought they were not like me. Right? But then when I went to the event, I went to the Computer and Computing Olympiad, and I met a lot of people there that were just surprisingly normal. And obviously very talented, but also kind of just normal people. And then that was when I really began to feel oh, okay, maybe there's a path here. Because I went to the Computer Olympiad, that's really the main reason I got accepted to MIT, and then that's where but my world really opened up when I first went to MIT, because that was the first time I was in an environment that was there's a lot of people who are kind of who are also very techie and very much a builder. MIT is very much an engineering school. Very much a builder culture there. This is why I fit in super well at MIT, and I really enjoyed my time.
Now I kind of wanted to know about the first thing that you ever built in the startup world. I was wondering what is kind of the inspiration that made you take this leap, and how has that experience been for you?
Yeah, and so in my example, so I was here from Stanford for my PhD. I mentioned, I won the best thesis award. I got 3 best paper awards. I was planning to become a professor, and I actually interviewed for tenure track offers, including at Berkeley and at MIT and a number of other good schools. Unfortunately, I didn't get any tenure track offers when I did that, and so I was kind of at a crossroads of I spent the last 5 years of my life just focused on. My plan was, my vision of what I was going to be was to be a professor and have great students, and do great research, all that. And this was now not not happening. So I was like, well, that was what really forced me to like take a step back and look at what was actually important to me. And what I realized was that it was really about positive impact. Nowadays it's a little bit more common, but like all of my research, all of my systems that I built, I would open source everything. I would make it so it could be repeatable. Like you could rerun any of the experiments, and like everything was all out there. So I was like very much builder forward, and that's where I realized that impact was actually the biggest thing that was the most important. And then what happened was that at this time where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, I had an opportunity to meet with Vinod Khosla, who is founder of Sun, and like he had just left Kleiner Perkins at this point and start Khosla Ventures. And then I went to meet him with my kind of research team, and then I think it was the next day where he's like, I want to invest in your company. And what? We don't have a company. But it's like, well, effectively, he said, well, here's $3 million, go build something cool. And I was like, that sounds like a great, sounds like a great opportunity, right? Tons and tons of learnings like through that experience, and we were so naive. It's just like we made so many mistakes, but it was a great learning experience, like going through all of that. And I'm really thankful because it put me on this like a life path that to end up where I am today.
So as like a serial entrepreneur, I imagine there must be like a lot of like up and downs in the process. How does that inspire your motivation of founding Inception Studio?
So in the early days, I was not, there were not that many programs or communities are really like for founders at that time. My first company started in 2005. Like there was no such thing as a safe note at that time, and like the terms of you raised on were like not that good. And part of it is, it's like I look back and like, man, what is the thing I wish that I had at that stage? Because being a founder is just really hard and lonely. It doesn't actually make economic sense to like do a startup, to even to be a startup founder, especially if you're in a hot area like AI. It's like there's so many well-paying jobs. Yes. You can just go and you can work at a bigger company, and it's guaranteed income, and and it's way less stressful, and it's way easier, and it's like a lot of perks and everything. And you can just go do that, right? But like, and so you have to have some reason. I mean, like when you are a founder, it's like you're eat, sleep, drink everything like 24/7, 365 for years and years of like, you're basically focusing on your startup. Because if you're only doing it part-time, something like, you will not be successful, right? It is all consuming, and your identity gets tied up in the company. And so the success and failure of the company is directly tied to your identity. Yes. Not to mention when you start to, for example, bring in other people and hire people and things like that. These are people that, that are very highly talented. They have lots and lots of opportunities. They chose to work on your startup. You now have an obligation to them to like make it into something great, not only for yourself, but for them, for all the people who like took a chance on you, for all the people who are dependent on you, right? And so that also like weighs on your, stress level, and like, talk to your co-founders. You certainly can't talk to your investors about this. You have to kind of always be on all the time, because, there's many times in a startup where everybody keys off of you as the founder, right? If you're having a good day and it's like you're enthusiastic about stuff, it's like everybody's productivity goes way up. If you are like down on things, it's just like the whole company just shuts down. It's just not like, you have to be on all the time. So it becomes really lonely. It becomes really, hard. That's when I think like having community really, really helps. There of people who have been through it before, who understand the things, you can be open about like the challenges of like, founding a company, etc. Right? Because it's like, it's a hard slog. I mean, like successful companies will take a decade or more. And people think it's like, oh, well, it's just hard at the beginning and it gets easier. No, it only gets harder. It's like every time, because it's like the team grows and everything. It's like, oh, we're going to hire these people. My life is going to be so much easier. It's like, no, now you have to manage those people. You have to manage this. The expectations go up. So like the stress does not decrease over time, and it is it is not a sprint, it is a marathon. You have to know yourself, you have to pace yourself and everything. So you have to like tough. So this is part of the reason why we started Inception and the way that we made it, we designed the program. We want it to be like a great community of people, of founders who have been there before. It can be a great support network, right? There's also this kind of halo effect that you get. I mean, even a place like Stanford or Berkeley, for that matter, MIT, like many of those other top schools, there's like the fact you went there, the fact you got accepted, like kind of there's a reputation there as well that like helps everyone in the organization. Right. And so this is like the type of thing we wanted to build, where it's like we just keep the bar extremely high, and then you get a great reputation for high quality founders and high quality startups, and then that helps everybody. It's like the rising tide will like lift all the boats. And so it's kind of like it ends up in this system, like this positive feedback system where everybody is supportive of one another because everyone wants to see each other succeed. It's not like a zero-sum game. It's like another founder succeeding means like, that's great. You're also part of Inception. That also reflects well on, indirectly on me and everybody else. Right. Yeah.
Another thing about Inception Studio that really stood out to me is that it's a nonprofit organization. So I want you to like kind of share the idea behind this approach, and also like how does this approach shape the way that you operate and support your founders?
The whole point of I want to make an investment, especially in like these type of tech companies, is that you're looking for the outliers. You're looking for the people who are like, they're not in the mean. They're like 3 sigma or 4 sigma out of the mean, right? They're like kind of, and then because if you look at it's like a power law distribution, like almost all of the returns and everything are all driven by these outliers. Right. And so the question is like, I'm going to optimize for the outliers and how to kind of find more outliers. Right. A lot of programs, they just have this like adverse selection effect. For example, if they want to take equity or they want to charge founders or things like that, what will happen naturally is that you're not going to get a uniform distribution anymore. You're going to basically exclude the top end, because the very best people, they have a choice. They have a choice about they have a choice about who they take money from. They have a choice about how they spend their time. They have a choice about what programs they join. And they're not going to join programs that insist to take a large amount of equity. They're not going to join a program that is like that, it takes them, they have to be there for 3 months and stuff, right? Because they don't need to, right? It wasn't like we set out necessarily to like, we want to build a nonprofit. It was more like, how can we attract and retain the very, very best people, right? And this is like part of the inspiration. This is like my time at Stanford, right? Look at Stanford. Stanford's a nonprofit, right? Hey, how we're going to maximize the revenue from students next quarter, whatever, right? They're looking as how can we establish Stanford as the world's top destination for the best talent in the world. And they're thinking about it in terms of decades, right? Not in the terms of like let's make revenue next quarter kind of thing, right? This is part of the inspiration there. It's like, well, what if we just go all the way to the other extreme? It was like, let me design the program that would be just completely on the other side. And part of that is like just to make it completely clear that like the point is not monetizing founders in the near term, is like, let's just make it a nonprofit, because like it's like there's no real money in like running events, and like there's no real money in trying to take advantage of founders or something, right? Like this is like that's short-term thinking, right? It's like, yeah, maybe we'll get some, maybe in the near term you get something, but like in the long term you end up cannibalizing it because the best people don't come. So we decided like, both in terms of the structure of the program and all the way to like the bylaws and everything. Structurally, Inception Studio is a nonprofit, which means that like it's inherently is like there's no possible way that this organization can actually be like morphed into something that is going to be exploitative towards the founders, right? Yeah, and then that was again, and like because we do that, because that then we're able to attract really great founders. I think we're 84% are serial entrepreneurs. We have about a third are exited founders. Like just some really, we were able to attract really accomplished people that honestly would just never even consider joining other programs. And yeah, it's because we're a nonprofit. It's because like we take zero equity, and because it's all upside for the founders who join.
You also mentioned earlier that like no matter how exceptional the team is, there's always like ups and downs in the process of building your startup. In the field of deep tech, there's sometimes even a longer road to commercialization. So in this process, what are some of the common hurdles that you have seen on those startups? And could you also share a story of how Inception Studio have supported early stage startup through these challenges?
So in the early stage, like the idea is very likely to change. And here's the thing, right? If you're not actually pivoting and changing your idea, you're probably doing it wrong. The one benefit that small startups have compared to larger organizations is their agility, where you can have one conversation with a customer and you can just decide, you know what, we are going to completely change our business. I think you cannot do that. Google cannot do that. Meta cannot do that. OpenAI cannot do that. Like none of those organizations, there's too much inertia, right? There was like, they've already made money in some ways. There's like, they can't just completely switch there. But that's what you can do as a startup founder, right? And so this is what you need to do. And like, this is part of it is like, it's a combination of like, yeah, you need to have great perseverance. You have to be like willing to run through brick walls and stuff like, in order to, because that's what it takes to be successful. But you also have to realize the cases where, wait, keep banging my head against this wall here. Oh, wait, there's a door right there. Why don't I just go through the door instead of like banging my head through the wall? So there's a little bit of, art there in terms of determining when do I pivot, when do I persevere, whatever. But you do need to like, pivot and change. And so this is what, even within Inception, especially you go early, like the idea will change. It'll change based on new technology that comes out. It'll change based on the market and competition. It'll change, based on like, as you learn more about customer opportunities, that kind of stuff. It is extremely rare for, I'm in the shower one day, I have some brilliant idea, and like fast forward 10 years, I'm like ringing the bell at the IPO and like everything happened exactly the way I predicted. Like that doesn't happen, right? Yeah. Like much more common is like, well, hey, we set out to build this gaming platform and gaming company, and we ended up building Slack instead. And then Slack is the thing that took off and became worth, tens of billions of dollars, right? Those are the actual cases of success, right? We have, founders within Inception that have gone through the program multiple times. There's one in particular that went through the program 3 times. And then actually on the 3rd time, like kind of found the right fit of co-founder, problem space and everything. And then they ended up raising $6 million right after that from General Catalyst. So it was like, it was kind of like they kept going and kept persevering and stuff. And then like, this is the part where it's like, the great thing about being a part of the community like Inception is that, yes, number one, there's like support. It's kind of a supportive community. Everybody's in the same boat. And so like, they're all like, how can I help out? All this, right? Especially we have a lot of experienced people. They know the value. They understand the value of that. Kind of pay it forward, kind of give back type of mentality, right? There's that aspect of it. But there's also like a little bit of like kind of accountability there as well, because it's like you see other people doing things. There's like deadlines, and so this is one of the most valuable things that we provide is deadlines. The deadline is so clarifying, right? Like everything that's not essential like falls away. It's like I must, when you have that tight deadline, right? So that's what so we provide deadlines, accountability, and also there's a little bit of this, I don't know what do you call it, it's like a sibling rivalry kind of effect that you have, where it's like, oh, there's other people that I know that are part of the same community, and like they are like, I see them doing well, and like that puts this kind of subtle pressure on that I put on myself to like also like do better. People kind of naturally, they just like calibrate to like the peer group that they're part of, right? But keeping that high bar there, having a lot of really accomplished people who are like making really good progress, that also provides a little bit of, again, subtle pressure there. But at the same time, it's like supportive environment. And so like, it's like the combination of those, like, I think it's really adds to just having a really great outcome. And this is why our NPS is like 84 or something. So it's like people who go through the program, they They love it. They become evangelists, and that's ultimately how we grow. 88% of the founders within Inception are referred by other founders who went through the program. So this is that's my kind of secret pro tip if you want to get in, is find and befriend somebody who's already been through it, and get them, get them to kind of believe in you and nominate you, and that's probably the best way to get in.